I am now at the final stop, the last stop, where many people across Europe arrived, and they came here at the concentration camp here in Auschwitz in Poland. Many people got tortured, even sent to gas chambers here, over 1.1 million people. So in today's video, I'm going to take you inside and we're going to have a look, see the remains of the gas chambers and see what it's like inside the concentration camp in Auschwitz. So behind me is the front of the concentration camp, and this is the railway which many people would arrive days, maybe traveling, separated from their family, had no food. And this is the front. You can see it's like a place where many people visit as well, because people have their family members that once came through these gates. In the years of 1940 to 1941, German occupants expelled the Poles inhabitants of the villages, and the names of the villages here. Germans funded the death camp Auschwitz and its economic and industrial base on the site of the demolished or taken buildings. So this is the queue at the front. Let's go. It's getting really busy here. All right, so this is the queue at the front. So this looks like a bookstore. Here is some information here of the people that arrived. So I can see there are mothers. These are women and they have their children with them. Looks like they're carrying their bags, something, maybe their personal items. Exactly here, what you can see was the final and last stop here in Auschwitz at the concentration camp in Auschwitz. So at the top you can see was where the guardsmen were with their torches, still looking over the concentration camp. As you can see now, to my left, there are some house ruins that were demolished when the Nazis found out that they were losing. And you can see the chimney still remaining. I'm now approaching one of the small wagons which they would arrive here at the concentration camp in Auschwitz. Really small.
We'll walk along this road of death where these people after selection were now changed.
This is a freight car to commemorate the Jews deported from Hungary that were murdered by the German Nazis in Auschwitz. It says here, in more than 100 transport during the spring and summer of 1944, on arrival, most of them were murdered in the gas chambers here. And this is what they once arrived in. People have left their flowers here as well, in memory. It must have been really hard for the people arriving into Auschwitz in the concentration camp, especially in conditions like this, crammed up in such a small carriage. Here is where the selection process was, as the XS doctor would select the newly arrived Jews, and then the rest of them would be sent off to the gas chambers. Here is the picture of where I'm stood now. Behind me is the wooden hut. There are many plots of guarding points, wooden huts where the guardsmen would watch over the concentration camp here in Auschwitz. The concentration camp is bigger than I thought it would be. Okay, so in front of me are the ruins that are still remaining, exactly how it was left after it was demolished once the Nazis knew they were losing. This is the actual gas chamber where they were sent. Many people were sent and they were told that they were coming to have a shower. And little did they know that they would be gassed, fumed. And this is the remainings. To my right are loads of brick houses going along here in this concentration camp. They are the houses where the people were kept in the concentration camp, and there are bunk beds in there still remaining, and there were so many people crammed up in there, suffering from illnesses, starvation, and mentally as well disturbed from the horrific tragedy what they've been going through once they arrived here, the concentration camp in Auschwitz. And this was the final stop where the lives of many would not leave to see the other side of these gates again. These wires were electric. I'm now making my way to the memorial. In memory of those that lost their lives in the concentration camp. This is where they arrived through these gates once they came off the wooden train, the wagon. You can see the mothers here with their children in this exact place where I am now. They were selected by the SS army, the Jews were, straight to their deaths once they arrived to the concentration camp. There is seriously a large amount of remains left over here. There is one bottle there left behind. It seems like a place where they would put possibly say 100 to 200 people crammed in that area. You can see the chimneys are still standing. All of the chimneys are still standing. Elderly people, kids, but the unable people, they were sent off straight here. The SS selected them, the SS army selected the Jews once they arrived. To my left is a tank. And now I'm walking along the broken road, which has not been changed or reconstructed in Auschwitz. Looks like an escape route here, a hole which I can see, and it's all the way going on the other side as well. This is the prisoner barracks. So in this part of the camp, it was built of wood. In most cases, only brick built chimneys remain. And I can see the workers here. They was working, digging the prisoners that were kept here in the concentration camp. It says here, concentration camp prisoners excavating the drainage ditch which ran along this fence. And here is the ditch which the prisoners were digging. And here is the ditch. This compound functioned as a quarantine camp for Jews and non-Jews from different countries during the period of August 1943 to November 1944. And the purpose of the quarantining was to identify those that might have infectious diseases that may infect others. And this is how it looks inside. And in front of me are the toilets, small tiny toilets here, plotted right next to each other. It's a really big concentration camp here. So this is another hut, a wooden hut here. So this photo was taken from the film Chronicle of the Liberation of Auschwitz, 1945. A living barrack for prisoners adapted from a German army fled horse stable. In such barracks, planned originally for 51 horses, over 400 prisoners were placed here. So over 400 prisoners slept here. And this seems like it was probably a fireplace. You can see the roses here left behind. "400 people were piled up on top of each other inside here, on bunk beds, probably on the floor, next to each other, no space." I'm making my way now into the next barrack. It has a wooden smell inside here, an old wood smell. And these barracks, what you can see, were originally for horses, but the prisoners were kept inside. These barracks, here what you can see, they were originally for horses, but they were, for the purpose, they kept prisoners inside. This is it here, Auschwitz, the concentration camp in Auschwitz in Poland, where over 1.1 million people were mass murdered. So here it is, the railway track leading to the last stop that took the lives of many once they arrived here in this concentration camp. So until next time, see me in the next video. In today's video, I am in Auschwitz, in Auschwitz in Poland, which is now a museum, which once was a place where the German Nazis occupied during World War II and the Holocaust. And this place was a place where the prisoners were kept. So now I am here in Auschwitz #1 at the museum, and it says here, this site is preserved for future generations thanks to, and here it says, in loving memory of those who perished in the Shoah, may their memories always be a blessing, and in honor of those who survived, who left this terrible place and kept the human spirit alive. And this place was once a extermination camp for Jewish people and other people across Europe. So we'll make our way in and see what is left over, the remainings of people's personal items which they have inside, which is now a museum, which people would have made their way through, not having no clue, no idea what they are going to or what would be. By order of Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler in 1940, the SS requisitioned the former Polish army garrison in Auschwitz that had been taken over by the German army after Poland's defeat in 1939. The prisoners were mainly men and initially mostly Poles. And these are the gates Hundreds of prisoners and Soviet prisoners of war died here, quarrying gravel of the expansion of the camp. Severely malnourished, many were too weak to do the back-breaking work. Others were beaten to death. The SS also carried out executions by shooting here. It's a really sad place for things that happened here in the Auschwitz concentration camp. And it says there at the top, work shall set you free. These are the gates which many people would have arrived and made their way through, not knowing what would be their destiny once they arrived here. So this is where we are now. And these wires were once electric, which you can see here. This barbed wire. The corpses of prisoners shot while trying to escape were often displayed here as a warning to others. The blocks, they are numbered here. This is 24A, and this one says, following successful escapes by Polish prisoners, the German police would sometimes arrest their relatives and imprison them in the camp. They were made to stand here under a sign stating that until the escape was apprehended, they would remain in the camp. And this was meant to be a warning for the other prisoners. I'm now making my way into block 15. Okay. On September 17th, 1939, the Red Army crossed the Polish border, implementing an agreement concluded earlier with Germany on dividing up the Polish state. I'm now going to show you a point where the prisoners were hung here in Auschwitz. In this place, the SS man in charge of the roll call received reports on the number of prisoners present. In the event that any of them were missing, the remaining prisoners were punished by having to stand at attention for long periods of time, regardless of the weather condition. So this place here was a place of execution and hangings. Polish prisoners hanged on 19th July 1943 during the biggest public execution in KL, Auschwitz. This booth is where the SS man responsible for conducting the roll call and collecting reports on the number of prisoners took shelter during inclement weather. Block 18. So I'm making my way down into this corridor now, and I can see a video playing. I'm not sure how many blocks there are in Auschwitz in this concentration camp, but the blocks are numbered. 19A block, and to my left is 18A block. This is block number 7. This prisoner barracks shows living conditions in the main camp, Auschwitz I. They differed according to the particular period of the camp's existence. The number of prisoners assigned to each barrack varied from 700 to over 1,000. So here is a typical interior of a prisoner's room during the first few weeks of the camp's existence. And this room here is a typical interior of a room for prisoners until spring 1941. Prisoners slept crowded together on straw mattresses. In the morning, they had to gather up the mattresses and arrange them into the corner of the room. Child's shoe. The Nazis deported about 232,000 children and young people to KL Auschwitz, including 216,000 Jewish children, 11,000 Roma Gypsy children, 3,000 Polish children, and 1,000 Slavic children and other nationalities. The majority of the Jewish children perished in the gas chambers immediately after arrival. Altogether, about 22,000 children and young people of various nationalities were registered as prisoners at KL Auschwitz. On 27th January 1945, Red Army soldiers liberated about 650 children and young people, of which 450 were under 15 years old in the camp. These are the outfits, what they were given once they arrived here in Auschwitz. Wooden shoes, leather shoes, regardless the weather, they would wear these clothes. Let's make our way into 5A block. And this is the room where all of the shoes are stored. That was in number 4, so now we are in number 5, and I can see luggages, suitcases with names written on them. So these are the people that once they got off of the wooden carriage, the train, they would have to hand over their items. And here they are, the people that perished here. Child's shoe, a child's jacket. This is a child's clothing. So here, at the side of the concentration camp, or at the back, I have came across fire brigade reservoir built in the form of a swimming pool, probably in early 1944. So here it says Zaglada extermination, and this is block number 4. And it says here, those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Auschwitz was the largest Nazi German concentration camp since 1942. Also mass extermination center for Jews. In the years 1940 to 1945, the Nazis deported at least 1,300,000 people to Auschwitz. 1,100,000 Jews, 140,000 to 150,000 Poles, 23,000 Roma Gypsies, 15,000 Soviet prisoners of war, and 25,000 prisoners from the other ethnic groups. 1.1 million of these people died in Auschwitz. Approximately 90% of the victims were Jews. The SS murdered the majority of them in the gas chambers. After many hours of traveling, not knowing where they would arrive, they arrive in Auschwitz, and then they are sent straight to the gas chambers. So I'm now going to show you the canisters which contained Zyklon B, a pesticide used for killing victims in the gas chambers. This is the Zyklon B which was used for killing the victims. And there it is, Zyklon B. This is the room exploiting the corpses, but I was unable to show you what was inside, but I can tell you it was just a pile of hair. And this is it. This is the barbed wire, the electric barbed wire, which separated many from the outside world, which would arrive and come through this pathway here. This exact barbed wire, which was once electric at some stage. So this here is block number 2, and to my right is block 13. Here is a map of Auschwitz Auschwitz, and this is the town, and I am located here. Block number 5, and it says material proofs of crimes. These are the belongings from the victims that were found after the liberation of Auschwitz. You can see all of the glasses here. This is the Jewish prayer shells, and here is the room of the stuff which was found after the liberation from the disabled people with disabilities. So you can see there are crutches and so on. Here is the room of the victims' items such as pots and cups. So I'm now going to take you to a place, a very infamous and very terrible place where millions of people were killed and sent into the gas chambers. And this is the pathway.
Hello.
Hello. And this is the guard tower where the guardsmen once were. I am now making my way along the pathway, on the walkway, where millions of people once walked. Little did they know what they were coming into, what their fate would be. Families, elderly people, fathers, mothers, loads of different kind of people walked along this pathway. And here it says former gas chamber and crematorium. This is where the camp Gestapo was located. Prisoners suspected of involvement in the camp's underground resistance movement or of preparing to escape were interrogated here. Many prisoners died as a result of being beaten or tortured. And this here is where the innocent victims were hung. From August 1940 until July 1943, this building served as a crematorium to incinerate the bodies of deceased or murdered camp's prisoners. At the end of September 1941, the first gas chamber was created in the former morgue room. The SS used it until December 1942. You are entering a building where the SS murdered thousands of people. Please maintain silence here. Remember their sufferings and show respect for their memory. The families were sent to their death in the gas chamber. Nazi ideology, which was based on a racist, anti-Semitic worldview, saw the Jews as a destructive race that poisons and undermines the foundation of human existence. In the Nazis' eyes, Jews and Judaism were a satanic force of seeking world domination. Here it says Nazi ideology, which was based on a racist, anti-Semitic worldview, was the main driving force behind the Holocaust of the Jewish people. So here is a map of where the other camps are located. Treblinka, Sobibor, Majdanek, Belzec, Auschwitz-Birkenau, and Chelmno. I'm about to show you a room with some drawings, and before I enter the room, I'd like to read you what it says. The artwork in this space is based on children's drawings from the war years, drawn in concentration camps, orphanages, and hiding places. The artist assembled fragments of the drawings and used a pencil to draw them on the walls in their original size. The soundtrack in the background is composed of the original recordings of the Jewish children from the war period and immediately afterwards. Most of the children whose drawings are featured in this space were murdered. All of these drawings, you can see. And I can see this is a drawing of Auschwitz Birkenau. This is the train that everyone was arriving in. These are the families. This is the SS officers. This is where people were hanged. The names of the murdered are inscribed in this book as an eternal memorial. And the victims' names are in this book. All of these names of people are in this book. It happened, therefore it can happen again. This is the core of what we have to say. I'm now going to show you the wall where the prisoners were lined up and they were executed. They were shot and killed straight ahead. In the courtyard between blocks 10 and 11 in the years of 1941 and 1943, SS men shot several thousand people at the death wall. Mainly Polish political prisoners, leaders and members of resistance organizations died here. Poles brought from outside the camp were also executed here, including hostages arrested in retaliation for actions by the Polish resistance against the German occupation authorities. Here is the death wall. The death wall. And that was the death wall. In September 1941, the first experimental mass killing with gas Cyclone B took place in this basement. 600 Soviet prisoners of war and 256 Polish prisoners who were selected from the camp hospital perished then. I'm now leaving, making my way out now, and it's a very sad place, and it's a part of history that everybody should know and nobody should forget. So, until next time, see you in the next video.